welcome to another episode of Hope Unfiltered. I am Renata Singh, and joining me is Pastor J. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Excited for this episode to conclude this topic. Part 2, yeah.
Part 1 was fire.
It's fire, yeah. Comments.
Thank you all for the, feedback. We appreciate you all always.
That's how I didn't get the memo for the matching hoodies though.
You're not on camera.
But still, I could have been matching.
not on camera.
Yeah, this was totally unplanned.
It literally was.
It was unplanned, but definitely.
Big up the...
I think it's keeping with the topic, toxic
Correct.
love, no perfect people,
But we not promoting toxicity. We just need to put that out there.
Why
right?
you always have to defend yourself like
I
that?
have to, because people might go away with the perception that,
that we promoting
we okay
this.
with,
No worries.
But
we're
also,
not perfect, we acknowledge that.
but also, if people want to get some Hope City merch as well,
True.
hit us up.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah, I like
Definitely. I like it, yeah.
Brand ambassador. Anyway, so this is part 2 of Toxic Love. But before we get into the meat of the discussion, we're going to do, as usual, our icebreaker.
Yes,
Mystery
yes.
producer, take it away.
No problem. So it's a bit different. It's not an actual game. This time it's just a simple question to each of you.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. So I'm going to give you all 3 scenarios of like a date scenario, and you all will decide which for you all are the best date. So the first one is the normal movie date. A nice movie on, you're taking out the significant other,
Right.
popcorn, a little meal, and watching a movie. The second is a restaurant date. So a nice fancy restaurant as it pertains to what you all like. No movie, this is strictly just dinner, and that's the date there. And the third one is something more outdoors, such as like a picnic. So that might more be during the...
God, all is geared towards the woman then.
Well,
The man ain't playing a little mixture for me there, but all right, there you go.
so yeah, picnic, so on location. So it could be like on a beach, it could be on a...
Okay.
It's outdoors, that type of... So which
Alright.
would each of you all prefer?
We had to choose one.
Yeah.
I don't like
Or you
none
could
of
rank
them
it
thing.
1, 2, 3.
Ranking 1,
Rank?
2, 3.
Yeah, best is 1.
Control it on my way.
So then after then you could give what is your ideal date scenario.
I don't even know. Listen, anything that involves the least amount of money.
So then why it is
And-
why
Why are you commenting
I was
on
talking
my...
to your husband the other day and you were telling me something to
Oh,
the
you was
extent
talking to
that
my husband.
That plane tickets is your love language. That,
It is.
Yeah.
That not very cheap though.
But we're
But I'm
talking
not
about
cheap, eh?
dates. We're talking about dates, not vacation.
Oh, vacation. All right.
Okay. Yeah, like my ideal day or date.
So wait,
or
you don't like
whatever.
any one of those options for
Yeah,
date?
not even really, because it
Okay.
involves... I don't really like dates, y'all. It's too much energy and effort. I know that's not a good thing because we still need to make the effort, but for a woman, you have to get up, get ready, look presentable, go and spend money when you could stay in your house and eat a good meal or, watch Netflix.
That's your chill.
That's me,
your
like,
chill.
stay home in your pajamas, save some money. Yeah, have a peaceful evening
Yeah.
or whatever.
All
So
right.
you used to be going on dates every week then.
Yeah, every day.
Okay.
Every day's a day.
every day is the date with me and my husband. I find this mystery producer kind
Real,
of
yeah, he come out
Yeah,
this session. If I had to rank it, I would say the outdoors because that's why I prefer. I like that. The second one would be a dinner in a restaurant because I find movies is not really a date, so that's a waste for me. So
You're not really interacting with the person.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
more
yeah,
about-
yeah.
True.
I mean, initially it's be cool for like maybe when you're early in the relationship, maybe. So it kind of gives you enough space where you could kind of stay quiet and, but for me, I don't count that as like good time together then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So when it comes to like gifts that you would receive from your significant other, so like with women, they love flowers. Majority
Right.
of women love flowers. What would you say is the equivalent to flowers to a man receiving a gift?
so like what a man would want, like an equivalent to that.
Peace. Not problems.
I don't want peace, we want problems. No. To be honest with you, I guess it'll be for every man, it'll be different. And where they are in life for me, my wife does this for me. She takes the kids out,
Okay.
away from me, gives me a little space That's like flowers for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And for
I like flowers. They could give me
I
flowers.
know you like flowers. As it relates to the female side of things, we could say that a man probably likes the aspect of the physical touch when it comes to things. So, what would be the equivalent to the physical touch for a man, for a woman?
I think emotional intimacy is important for a woman. I think that's something that she likes from a man. It may not necessarily be something that comes naturally to a man to give. So it may require some effort on the man's part, but I think, some sorts of emotional,
Effort and connection and that.
connection, yeah.
More, maybe more intentionality then.
Yeah, I think that gives a woman security.
Give us some examples, because some men hear that and they still don't know what you're talking about. So, give us
Oh
practical
gosh, I had a
examples.
long day and I come home and I just need a vent and buddy just sit down there and listen to my vent about my whole long
But
day.
that, you see, that's the challenge, right? Men, by nature, like to fix problems.
Yeah.
The woman just wants to vent. The guy
Correct.
wants to fix the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think, there needs to be an understanding as well in conversations like that. What is the expectation? Because a man may be like, oh gosh, she's telling me this, I have to find a solution. When really and truly, you just want somebody to listen to you.
Yeah,
But
no.
then if you're listening to and you say, they might say, but you're not even listening to me, you're not giving no response.
No, what I was going to say, well, the man can't read minds now.
True,
Yeah.
true.
The age-old
Oh, yeah.
question comes back up from last episode. What do you want?
What do you want? Yeah.
No,
What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What
It's-
do you want? God damn it. What do you want?
yeah, and I think women have, oh boy, Renate going on a hard road here, but I will say it, I think generally, women, sometimes we find it difficult to articulate specifically what we want. We would talk a lot about a lot of things, but sometimes being very direct with, hey, I need X, Y, Z.
You find it difficult for them to do
So,
that?
yeah, I think sometimes
Sometimes?
it could be a challenge. We're good at expressing it, don't get me wrong, we talk a lot. But I think some men need to hear directly, I need 1, 2, 3. Get on my list. Be very direct. Because a lot of times as women, we, say certain things expecting the man to, I don't know, decode.
That's a serious thing. That's a real communication barrier
Yeah.
for plenty couples.
It
Definitely.
is. It is. So I guess understanding how we, men and women communicate with each other is important.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different style too
Of course, personalities will be
Yeah.
one aspect, but just on the basic level, men and women usually and generally build differently.
yes.
So there's already a disconnect from
Yeah.
that aspect. So we definitely have to do more.
And women can't expect a man to communicate like a woman, and a man can't expect a woman to communicate like a man. So it's a matter of a certain level of understanding that we need to. And it's not necessarily that anybody has to change, there just needs to be some level of, like you said, understanding in that.
I think
That's
I don't think it's matter change, but you just know, like, if you
Yeah.
want the relationship healthy, you want to be able to continue to grow, and so you find ways that are effective for communication.
Yeah,
That's the way I think I would look at it.
definitely. You have any more questions for us?
No,
That's it?
I think we can move on to the recap of last pod episode.
A lot we spoke about, a
Right.
whole lot. We touched on what is toxic love, some of the characteristics of toxic love as
Yep,
well. But
definitely.
one of the things we ended with is the different types of toxic love. You wanna just
Well, I just remember how much you went into the parent-child one. So I know that was one of the first ones we spoke about.
yes, you know one of the polls that we did actually asking people which one of the types of toxic love was the worst. They actually said parent-child.
Serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was shocked by that. I was expecting it to be more like
The
marriage
romantic
or
side of it,
dating.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
actually interesting,
Yeah,
though.
they did say parent-child.
So you say it wasn't just us talking a lot about it.
People actually connect with that specific type of toxic love.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of them.
Yeah, that was
That's-
48%. Single and dating was 21%, marriage was 21%, and friendship 10%.
Wow.
See, friendship last. Okay.
That's
So yeah, basically the mystery producer would have just kind of gone through the various ones, except spiritual, which we did touch on last.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, but I mean, just what we said, like the friendship, single dating, and even the marriage have all areas that overlap.
Yeah.
So definitely something that we kind of got through, but the spiritual one, yeah.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, we're just again doing a recap here, but definitely go check that episode out if you missed
Yep.
it. We shared a lot of details in terms of the different characteristics and the different types of toxic love. But today we're going to shift things a little bit. We're going to talk about toxic love versus abuse. Is there a difference?
Is toxic love abuse?
Yeah.
I think abuse obviously is toxic,
Yes.
but I don't think toxic love automatically is abuse.
falls into the category. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think when I was doing my research and stuff, and even just like what I look at, I think the overriding factor that is, in addition to maybe those toxic traits, is a definitive power dynamics.
Okay.
One person dominating over the other.
So that's the difference between the toxic love and
The abuse. Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
So there is some sort of dominance there in
Yeah, it has to be a certain level.
aggressor and victim type.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like a clear person who has power and control
Yeah.
over the other person in whatever way. Whether because we know abuse could look differently. It's not physical power.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could just be the fear that they have over them.
Right.
You know, keeping them afraid to leave or to do something they normally would do. So there are different aspects of it, but I think the power dynamics is one of the main parts. So I don't want us given the idea that okay, because something is toxic,
That it's abuse.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So need to be careful with that aspect. But one of the things to note is for the different types of the different types of toxic love, there can be abuse in those different scenarios. So for example, parent, child, friendship, dating,
Yeah.
marriage, even spiritual as well. There could be abusive scenarios happening in those.
No, 100%. I think that goes without saying. But I think one thing we touched on last episode was like when you don't put those toxic traits in check, or you
Right.
don't start to actually deal with it, confront it, unmask it.
Yeah.
More than likely, those things lead to abuse in some form or fashion. So I think that's why it's so easy. People might interchange toxic with abuse as well.
Right. It could be linked because it could be linked, but like
I
I,
think,
said,
yeah.
like you mentioned earlier, it's not one and the same necessarily. So
Yeah.
it's something that So what are some signs of toxic love, like or abuse even? So again, one of the things that I mentioned last episode is toxic love may not necessarily be as visible as abuse.
Right.
So abuse, there may be maybe physical signs that a situation or a relationship is abusive, but toxic love may be so subtle that it goes unnoticed.
Right.
So it could be like jealousy, resentment, controlling behaviors, dishonesty.
Yeah.
Those are things that could be happening in a toxic relationship.
That not as obvious to anyone, but also even to the victim as well.
Yeah.
To the person in the
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
For me, honestly, Ren, that's why, like, I think through my own experiences, even my own failures, like being toxic or enduring some toxic relationships, I think for me, I've always seen the value in having a strong community around you. Because once, let's say, because we talk about different types, so we could see toxic love with the parents, children. We could see it in different types of relationships. But once there's an element of love,
Yeah.
I don't care who it is, we all susceptible to be blinded by that.
Yeah.
And so for me, sometimes one of your safeguards has to be, like, especially in those areas where you're talking about the things that are not as obvious. Because like
Yeah.
with abuse, you might hear how they speak to that person.
Or
You
might
may
a
see
scar.
marks, right? You would see things that actually indicate, hey, this is abusive. But with the toxic, there may be no visible marks,
Yeah.
but somebody from the outside may see certain patterns, things you
Yes.
can't see because
Yeah.
you're in it. And so for me, I think it's very difficult sometimes for us by ourselves
To identify.
to identify it. I mean, I know we told people, hey, go make your list and stuff, but that was more so for yourself as well.
Yes.
I mean, if you gain feedback from different people that you are a certain way,
Yeah.
at some point you have to realize it's not conspiracy against you.
Right, yeah.
Right? But in terms of seeing it in someone else, like those things you talked about, like the dishonesty or the manipulating or the control. Remember, when you said that, I remembered something you mentioned last time. You had said a scenario where a child looking at abuse, that becomes their baseline. So someone who may be broken in their own life, seeing the same warning signs, but it doesn't trigger
Yeah.
them. And everybody else who's seeing it, like, that's crazy. Why are you in that? And so I think having other people around, and that's why I said one of the most toxic things I see in relationships is when you are isolated.
Because you don't have that gauge. You don't
Correct.
have nobody there looking out for you or to close enough to be able to pick up on these things. But another thing is, some people are, in
They what?
spaces where they have
Okay,
that
right.
community or people looking out for them.
Yeah.
Close enough to notice certain things, but they're in love. And you telling them, XYZ, this person, advising them how to deal with the
Right.
situation or sharing, some of the things you may have picked up on just by interaction and, well, this person in love.
So
How would you deal with a situation like that? Like, okay, there is this person that you know and...
ghost them?
Listen,
I'm just trying to go with the flow of the culture. Just to try and take
with the culture,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, yeah, see,
Yeah, so like, and you see, you're noticing certain things with a couple, and I mean, I'm sure you have encountered situations. You're
No,
a
most-
pastor, like, you, probably plenty.
that's what I'm trying to, like, I'm trying to think, okay, is there something set that I do? I mean,
Or is it dependent on the people and the scenario?
that's a more pertinent question because depends on my role with that person as well.
Okay.
So let's just say it's friends, right? Forget the capacity of as a pastor. Let's say I'm looking at someone like a friend or a family member.
Yeah.
Of course, depending on what type of toxic behaviors I'm seeing or even abuse, that's a whole different conversation. But based on what I'm seeing, I'll take certain actions. But I think the main thing is if I start talking to them and saying, hey, this was happening, from a neutral perspective, this doesn't look good. You should ask certain questions or be mindful of it. And, this is what I get as a pastor. You get a lot of people who agree. Like they agree, they see it, and they even finish in your sentences because they know
What is the right
what it
thing?
is, and there's like, yeah, we're gonna work on it and stuff. And then, like you said, the love, the whatever they holding on to,
Yeah.
they stay in it. So what do I do with that? I think one of the parts that brought real healing for me as a pastor is to recognize I can't change anyone. And there's a humility, but there's also a pride when you think in the opposite way, like I
And
have
you have the power
I have the
to-
ability to, Ren, you shouldn't do this or whatever. So for me, as long as I can do what I think I'm supposed to do in terms of warning that person,
Yeah.
giving them other steps, maybe even leading them to through the relationships they strong with them, and asking them, hey, be accountable to this one or that one. Like, if they don't choose to do it, there's not much. Now, if there's a case of abuse, that's a different
Different,
story.
yeah.
But in terms of just the toxic relationships, I have conversations with people like they now start dating relationships and you're looking at it and you're seeing it going a certain way.
Yeah.
You try to warn, you try to give. And at the end of the day, most times people will do what they want
What
to
they
do.
want to do, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I it's hard.
Yes.
Don't hear me saying like it's easy just to tell them and walk away. It's very difficult, especially
Yeah.
when you're seeing it. And you remember one of the things that I hope you guys recognize with this is even if it's just one person toxic, it affects both parties in a very serious way. And
Being in an toxic environment, even if
Right.
you are in a healthy place, can make you toxic.
You're not gonna be healthy for
no,
long.
you're not.
You're not gonna be healthy
You're not.
for long.
That's just the reality. So fooling yourself by thinking AI good and it's only the other person that have things to work on. No, by
Yeah.
you being around that, it is going to impact
how
you.
we
and
say it
affect-
in the church, the missionary dating.
What's that? For the
So,
sake of the people.
I
and I feel like I need an explanation.
Listen,
Missionary.
it's like you're with somebody you know you're not supposed to be with.
Right.
But you
you're on
believe
assignment.
you're on assignment. You're on assignment. You go and make the difference. You go
Right.
by you the way you love Jesus, they go and follow Jesus. That not happening.
No, it's not happening.
That not happening. So like I always give a simple example.
I don't even think that adds weight to your witness. Let's just be real. I think it actually clouds it a little bit.
So look at this, right? I just always give this example. If I standing on this chair, right?
Yeah.
It's more difficult for me to pull somebody up onto the chair than somebody is to pull me off the chair. Just real simple. And that's the basis of how we operate in relationships. It doesn't matter how strong you are.
Yeah.
If you stay in a space that's not healthy, that's a place that you are compromising with,
Yeah.
before long, you are the one that is going to start going down and under.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that.
And
that's,
even worse if you don't, again, have that community, that support system
of course.
around you.
I mean, but I think for every person, we have to answer for ourselves, because myself included, is are we willing to actually have a conversation and receive like that kind of feedback from people? That's really what it comes down to.
No, yeah. And I get that it's a difficult or awkward position to be because, let's be real, specifically romantic relationships are usually mostly kind of private.
Right.
In terms of like what you would share with that person and stuff like that. So I could see it, you're feeling a kind of way if somebody comes to, because the excuse could always be like, oh, you don't know that person.
That's what
you
you say.
You don't really know that person. Like the person is a nice person.
Can we say this here? You tell me if you agree. If you are the only person who sees this person that way, you're in a toxic relationship.
Maybe need some glasses.
Like, love blind. Come on.
Love is not okay. Let's address this.
We-
Love is not blind. Okay, I don't know who said this. Love is not blind. It really is not. It should not be.
It should not be so.
No, it's real love is not blind. Real love is not secretive. Real love is not snooping. Those things are not real love. Real love is not that. And it's not that.
I feel like we hit a sore spot there, boy.
That is such a
Because that's
popular saying.
Can we? So I get where you're coming now from with it. So could that be like a mask for toxic love?
Yeah,
When we say love is blind, because you choosing to ignore
correct.
all the different things. But that's, I think when people say it though, it is probably describing that. That you in a relationship where you ignoring,
Yeah.
and we just say love is blind. It's not that it's actually blind, it's you choose not to see or hear.
Yeah, you choose that
choose,
though.
yeah.
You choose that. Doesn't just because you choose to turn a blind eye on something does not mean that it's not there.
You want to hit that?
I have to like at some point we have to start. This is unfiltered, right? So we just
For sure.
IRL sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. Not really, but
No, but that is something that I think we really have to reiterate, that honestly, like you said, if you alone are the one that's seeing all the good in this person by yourself, and family, friends, people showing and telling you otherwise, then that really is just your choice.
yeah. And if one person comes to you and says, this person is XYZ and noticing certain things, let's just say you don't have that level of trust in that one person. Go to somebody else that you have that level of trust. Check again with somebody else.
Yeah.
But don't just leave it like that, because what you turn a blind eye to today could cause problems for you tomorrow. The same
Definitely.
things that you flirt with and find nice and so cute when you're dating. Yeah, you'd
It'll be
probably want
problems
to,
Yeah.
let's not use very harsh words, but throw fists when you find yourself in a house with somebody like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. You have to be
Come
real.
on for them today.
Yeah, we just have to be real. Gotta be real. Yeah. So abusive relationships. One of the things that I found while reading is they said that roughly 10 million cases of abuses in the US are reported each year, and many of those cases come from intimate partners. So a lot of it's
Wow.
a lot of abusive relationships. And I think these stats would show more so for romantic situations, because I don't know who be collecting stats on friendship and
Right.
parent child. It's more prevalent. You'd see it more
In the intimate relationships.
correct. Because I guess for even like from a policing standpoint, like domestic violence and stuff like that, they would collect stats on those things. Unfortunately, we don't have much stats for Trinidad. We're not so
Yes,
good at
I
collecting
know.
stats here.
Data
so
is not our strong point.
yeah, it's not. But
But we have the same kind of trend. So like,
Correct.
especially with the US, we pattern too much from the US. So
unfortunately, yes, we do.
we
Yeah,
definitely.
So
But you mentioned something there in terms of the domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to bring this in. I want to hear your thoughts on it. When you hear about, for me as a male, I hear a lot about domestic violence from one side. From one side.
Yeah.
Every ad, every bit of information is always a man being the aggressor.
Yes.
But from my experience, not that I, before anybody go after Sarah.
no, yeah, you have to.
I
put
don't
it-
know,
you
make a
have to-
disclaimer. But like even like with pastoring and even seeing other relationships around me, I have seen so many examples of women
Yeah.
being very abusive. Like, this is not me saying they was toxic and using, no, physically
Yes.
damaging, and the male
Yes.
takes it because anytime they react,
Retaliate is
or
because
they go
that's
into
when
jail.
it becomes abuse.
them going to
That's
only
when
when
it
the male
becomes abuse.
reacts, right? How it is, do you view domestic violence or even abuse?
Yeah.
Because you talk about the statistics like that. But I know for most men, they probably would never open their mouth about whether toxic love or abuse because there's, for me personally, I don't see the support.
Yes.
Because most men will probably be ridiculed,
yeah.
sadly, but there aren't much support systems, at least that I
There
have seen.
aren't.
Granted,
I don't think there is either. I think from a position of culture, I think we don't have a culture that allows persons to be open about men as well, like open about things like emotions and stuff like that. It's still very kind of taboo for a man to, open up and like say like how he feels and stuff like that. And so I think because of that, like culturally, there seems to be some sort of perception that it's not really like it's not like a fitting environment for a man to
be-
say, hey,
right.
I'm being hit on, like, and then I don't know, like you guys could tell me if y'all will feel a way admitting as a man to something like that. I don't know how it is for a man, like coping with that and accepting that, hey, this is abuse, because
Right.
that's one of the first steps. Like, you have to admit that it's
that you're
that it's
in
abuse.
a
Like,
place of that. yeah.
how I don't know what that looks like for a man, like, your wife or significant other hitting at you. Do you see that as abuse?
That's a good question. I wonder if men would actually see it as that.
Yeah.
Or society
or
on
have
the
we
whole.
been trained so much to think
That's what I'm saying.
that it goes just one way, that a man would not even think that it
So-
is.
And you know why I think that exists? Because when we talk power dynamics, when it comes to physical abuse, we think power dynamics only in one aspect,
Yeah.
strength.
Yeah.
So obviously it's like almost assume that the only person who can be the abuser is the stronger one, which is the male
So-
most times.
So that's talking on the end of physical abuse. But
No.
there is
So that's what I'm saying. Like, that's where we've
verbal
kind
abuse
of
too.
created
Yeah.
that part. It's okay to see if a man is shouting at a woman that he's being abusive.
Yeah.
But I think it's more still from the basis of because a male has the physical ability to do more that we look at it, which is incorrect. I think there are a lot of men who go through not just toxic relationships, but very much abusive relationships in silence.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, I think a lot of that would have to be because, and I'm just honestly just trying to put myself in that position. Well, number one, I think if you don't think there's any means for you to get help, you're not going to verbalize it.
What's the point?
Because more than likely you'll get ridiculed first.
Let's look at what I don't know how this scenario looks like, right? But for example, domestic violence. If a woman is being beaten or whatever, she would call the police.
Right.
What does that interaction look like for a man?
I remember they did this. These people
You
did this.
I thought you were saying
No,
you
no,
made
no.
a report.
Careful what you're
Make a
saying.
report. It was these people basically did a test, and they set up these actors in a mall,
Right.
and it showed you it was a couple, and you saw the first scenario was the man was beating on the woman, so he'll either be very verbally abusive and then probably push her.
Right.
And as it happened, you saw so many people, guys coming in,
Help.
holding him back, women comforting her, and then they flipped it. It was the same couple, probably a little late in the day, and it was the opposite. And she would be abusing him, even slapping him.
Nobody
and
moves.
people were filming it. It was like something that they would film and be laughing at. So
Wow.
it wasn't. So you could have tell right then and there that the male didn't have that level of support. And as you say, if a male doesn't have that support, then who is he even going to go out to and open up about it? It's just for him to deal with it on his own.
Yeah, that is a very
That's crazy though.
No, it's crazy, but
But it is
unfortunately,
reality.
It's our reality.
It is all real.
It's a very sad reality too. But I know we touch on a lot on the physical aspect of, for example, a man being abused.
Right.
But there is, and I think this is probably probably a little more prevalent than physical abuse for a man. Verbal abuse.
Yeah.
I think that is something that is very prevalent when we're talking abuse and you know males being the victims.
Right.
And yeah, I think that's something that women need to be. One of the words that you used there just now is that a man, you know, shouting or whatever at a woman will be considered abuse, but a woman doing it to a man will be considered as nagging. Think about that. Like if a woman is constantly, you
Right,
know,
right.
talking, we would say, "Oh, she's just nagging him."
Yeah.
But no, that could be a form of, you know, abuse as well, depending on what the conversation looks like and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think culturally, I can only speak for Trinidad and Tobago because that's where we live at and have the most experience in. But
Yeah.
it's just framed in that way, and that unfortunately, it's kind of sad for men.
I have a lot to say on that. I just like the views, not beyond abuse, beyond toxic relationships. I think our culture has really tried to destroy healthy manhood.
Yeah.
I think the flip side to even what we're talking about is when you actually see a man who's assertive or confident, they may be tagged as being arrogant or maybe even being abusive or
Yeah.
toxic, just for being healthy in certain aspects. So I think it's a wider conversation, but I was just interested to hear your opinion on it because I feel like when we talk, I know physical, but like you rightly said, it doesn't have to just be physical. I think on the whole abuse, I think men do have a harder space of being able to voice it at least.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say in terms of the physicality, obviously, but in terms of getting help,
Yes.
I think it's more difficult for men to get help with
Definitely.
that.
What I mean, I'll put you on the spot here, but what do you think that looks like? Like, what are some proactive steps you think we could take to address? Because it's something that needs to be addressed.
Right.
Men can't be going through this alone. Just like how women have a space that they can go to, or, you know, programs even set up to
Right.
support women. There needs to be something in place for
Yeah.
for men? What do you think that looks like?
I think creating safe spaces for men, but I think for men it takes a little bit longer for them to trust spaces like that. I think being consistent and being present in, like, having community of strong men. I think the first place for us, I mean, coming from a church aspect, I would like to see us invest more to make healthy men,
Yeah.
and then they can start supporting and mentoring and helping others. I think because part of the equation is not just dealing with what is existing right now,
Yeah.
but the young men as they're coming up, mentoring and coaching. And I've seen some organizations actually move in some direction locally here,
That's good.
empowering men and so. So I think we are starting to see a little bit more of it, but I think there's definitely a lot more room for it and room for more conversations like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
to try and help. But yeah, I would look into trying to find spaces that are creating spaces that are safer for men to maybe just share and open up with it.
So let's shift a little bit. Can toxic love be fixed? What do you think?
Well, I think yes, but depends on obviously the circumstances,
Okay.
but more so dependent on the persons.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a formula or program. I think those things help.
Yeah.
I think the process looks different for each situation, but only if both parties, because where there's talk, like you kept reiterating this, if you are a healthy person and you are in a toxic relationship, it's not going to be before long you are actually displaying some traits or reacting or adjusting
Yeah.
and becoming toxic in some form or fashion. So I think both parties have to do the work
Yeah. I
to
agree.
become healthy. But I think, yes, you can fix that. I think it was in the first episode you said, we're not talking about it like it's hopeless.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know-
so there is still hope. But also there's like you said, the two people need to come together and say, all right, accept personal responsibility for the toxicity that they have been contributing to the relationship, as well as there needs to be some sort of understanding in terms of how do we come together after.
So here's the thing that I think I want to interject. Both parties have to work on it. Most times, probably
Individually.
separately.
Yeah, individually.
How to be.
Yeah,
Because-
before you come together.
Part
You
of
know.
what makes a toxic relationship is both parties festering and allowing that space.
Yeah.
Whether it's through brokenness, through trauma, like we spoke about, unresolved issues, whatever it is, it means that equation coming together kind of produces that.
Yeah.
And this is the part I think most people are not going to do. Or at least from my experience, I think is the most difficult part,
Yeah.
is to separate.
We don't do fractions either, so you ain't bringing half and I'm bringing half.
One whole and one whole,
Correct,
right?
Yeah.
That's
so
what we're trying to bring to
that's the
table.
ideal.
Yeah.
So we have to work on ourselves. It all comes back to we live in a culture that likes to point fingers a lot, but we have to start, taking responsibility for our lives and
Right.
ourselves, really. Yeah. So yeah, I totally agree with you. It could be fixed.
It could be fixed. I would say the rebuilding has to happen, though, in community and accountability.
Yeah.
A healthy community that could keep you on track and stuff, but one or two persons that know exactly what's happening to keep you accountable.
So yeah, I had to work through. I would have shared in the first episode that I had a toxic love scenario where I was the toxic one.
Right.
And yeah, at that point in our relationship, we both had to come to some sort of understanding that, hey, I have to work on some things and you have to work on some things. And yes, there may have been other elements at play in terms of why you would have reached to this point. Because there's always a reason why you are the way you are.
Correct.
So finding out what those reasons are, like you mentioned, trauma or whatever it is,
That's critical. Yeah.
is critical. Sometimes you need to take a couple steps back before you move forward.
Right.
So yeah, I had to do that, and we had to do the work. It was uncomfortable.
What made you realize you were the toxic one?
That's an interesting question. I think it wasn't something that I practiced before. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, I had mentioned before that I would do the whole, going into your phone, you can't go
Right.
nowhere without me, that sort of controlling behavior. I wasn't doing that before.
Right.
And it's not something I don't think I was necessarily comfortable with it. I had just done that as a measure of
A response.
to
Right.
as a means of protecting myself as well. But regardless of what my reasoning for doing it was still toxic.
It was unhealthy, yeah.
And I knew that if I had continued along this path, it would have just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And it would not have contributed in a positive way if this was a relationship I was to pursue for the
Right.
long term. So, yeah, it had to be fixed. I had to address what was causing me to react that way. And yeah, when I fixed that, I was able to change my response.
Change the response. So I would say the first thing, if anybody was asking me, well, how do you start to fix or start to address that
Yeah.
toxic relationship? First thing you have to do is stop denying it.
Yeah.
You have to stop denying that this part of our relationship or this aspect or this person or I am that person that is
Yeah.
toxic.
And sometimes it is hard to accept. I'm not saying it's not something easy to walk
For sure. We saying this right here as a bullet point maybe, but
through. Yeah, no, it's
it takes
hard.
a lot of strength and,
And I can't
courage.
sit here either and tell you, okay, all right, give yourself a week or 2 weeks. I don't know what that process looks like.
Correct.
I don't know the depths of your trauma or the depths of the situation that led you to respond in that way, or that would have led me to respond that way. So sometimes you need to take the time. I think it took me probably a couple of years. It was something that I
Wow.
kind of like weaned off over time.
Right.
It wasn't like a
Instant.
instant thing for me. It was something that I had to keep working on and always check myself. Hey, am I moving into this mode? Or hey, Renata, you're going down this path again.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, I can't even say like a timeline. All I can say is just be very aware of continuously working on it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's real good. I mean, if you're gonna stop denying, but you have to be intentional every step, because for everyone's process will look different
Yeah.
based on their circumstances, but also based on them as individuals.
Yeah.
The support you have, that sort of thing. I think one part of addressing toxic relationships, once you can confront it, I think you have to actually identify what the benefits are.
Okay.
Because this is the part that we didn't really talk much on the first part. Like, it's easy to talk about that person who's toxic. So like for
Yes.
you talking about yourself,
Yeah.
the controlling, going through the phone, that sort of thing. But for that partner, there is some benefit that they had from you
Yeah.
that you brought to their life that allowed them to ignore that
Toxic. right?
toxic trait or that warning, those red flags, as we would say. And I think for everyone that finds themselves in a toxic relationship, you've got to actually identify what the benefits are.
Yeah.
Are you dependent on this person financially?
For emotional.
For emotional? You're afraid of being
Yeah.
alone. I hear that a lot.
Yo, that's a big one.
I hear that a lot.
A lot of people end up in any relationship
Because they're
because
afraid
they're
to be
afraid
alone.
of being alone.
Yeah.
Yep.
That
So you
is-
would settle for literally anything that.
Could be abusive even.
Yeah.
I've seen that, and that's the thing. You have to identify what the benefits are, because I think when you kind of have an idea what the benefits are that you're afraid to let go of, even though you're seeing danger or warning, it probably would lead you back to something that's broken in you.
Yeah.
That's the catch to it.
Yeah.
Your triggers of what you holding on to probably is exposing something that needs to be addressed, something that needs to be fixed.
Totally agree. 100%. Yeah. One of the things that I had here is be open in terms of like rebuilding that period. Be open to hear how the other person feels in a healthy way without it reaching to a argument or I think being able to have a healthy conversation.
Right.
Be mature enough to listen. Hear maybe certain things that may trigger you or make you feel kind of a little uncomfortable without responding, is key in that period of time. Because honesty is
But as honesty is a major part of that. But I think like you are talking about a level of trust that has to be there
yeah.
to be able to do that. Because I have to trust you are not saying this to destroy me or
Yeah,
attack me
yeah.
or like I have to
Yeah.
trust the motive and the heart behind that. And honestly, if you've been in a toxic relationship for long, you may not have that health.
level, right?
Yeah.
So that's why again it comes back to maybe community. Maybe you may need
You
to have
need
a
help.
third party
You
in
need
that
help.
scenario to
Yeah.
help you navigate through that. And nothing is wrong with that. Nothing is wrong with having good counsel.
I think what I want people to understand is we're not trying to say if you're in a toxic relationship, that's the end of it. But if you are going to take the right steps to give it a chance to work or to that's our heart, that's our hope.
Yeah.
Like whether it's restoration, whether it's healing. I mean, some things, yes, you have to pray and run, like Ren would say. But our heart is that if you find yourself in that you would take the necessary steps to restore. So, like you said, I believe that's why community is so essential. Because for most toxic relationships, we're already probably in a bad state.
Yeah.
That we need help. That we need help to get it restored or to work through the relationship.
Another thing is I think like and we would have mentioned it previously, just dealing with certain things like your emotions and your toxicity as an individual. I think that's one of the key things that has been reoccurring since the first part, but I think it's so critical in terms of that rebuilding phase as well. Working on you and then working as a couple or even like a friend.
Yeah, because different
Or
types of
parents,
relation.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the dynamic with parents and kids will be a little bit different, though.
Yes.
How you work on that, I mean,
Yeah.
it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult. But I think, yeah, I fully agree with that. I think the process, you have to start with yourself. Whether it's from a place of being a victim to it or you're part of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to start there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. One of the things that I want to say is the walk away part aspect of it is if at that point where you identify a problem and you have expressed or voiced, hey, there's a problem, let's work on it, and the person is unwilling to, I think that at that point you need to accept that.
You think there's no option? You have no option.
Right, so there is no option.
You have no option.
There is no option.
If you're in a toxic relationship and both of you are not willing to work on it, or
one
one
person
person don't want to
is.
admit
Yeah.
to it also,
Then unfortunately it is in your best interest,
to
regardless of how much love you love. Yeah. To walk away.
I agree. I mean, definitely is a part that I think you said it, they're kind of like closing it off, but it's probably one of the biggest parts to dealing with toxic relationships. No one person can fix it.
Yeah.
So some of you who think you could love them into a healthy place,
They have to want to be healthy.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
have to, unfortunately, they have to want it. That's just how it works. Sorry there, no, we ain't cutting no corners here.
And sometimes that separation is what's actually needed for that level of maturity to come, I mean, you see it in movies, but it's actually happened, You leave someone and after 2-3 years, they become the person that they're supposed to be, and it might happen then. So I'm not giving people hope, but in a way, the separation is something that could actually allow you all to overcome that toxicity.
Yeah. Right. Pretty sad. Wake up there and
I
give us
know,
some.
And toxicity isn't gender specific. Let's put that out there. Women are toxic too,
Yeah.
equally as men are sometimes. Yeah, it's not gender specific. And we would have done a poll on this, and thankfully, people actually said that.
Hey, we have a smart audience.
You
so,
know?
Yeah, they know things.
I was actually expecting everybody to say no, it's
Is it
only the
me?
man
Yeah.
and la la la. But no, people were like, no, it's not gender specific. So I was really happy to
Both genders, male and female,
yeah.
yeah, either one can be toxic.
All All right, so we spent a lot of time talking about toxic love.
Right.
I think it's fitting to end on a good note, on a light note. So yeah, we're just gonna really quickly touch on what does healthy love look like.
So you're gonna go like straight on preach mode there, because like if I had to look for a definition for love, I mean I'm going to turn to my faith to see what God demonstrates as love.
Yeah.
Because I think for any one of us, we spoke a lot about it, that we all have traits, whether it's selfishness, insecurity, whatever it is. We all struggle with parts of us that makes us toxic. I think one of the best definitions that I see describing how God loves us, that's where I want to go. If I want to look for what true love looks like, it's taken from Ephesians chapter 2, verses 4 to 5. It says, God, being rich in mercy, because of the great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in our trespasses, made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved. A lot of people talk about that being like, okay, while we were still God's enemies, he loved us, he sacrificed for us. So the idea that I get first and foremost when I think about God's love and him being love, that's how the Bible describes him in the Gospel of John, is that it's a type of love that's sacrificial.
Yeah.
So if I want to paint a picture of what healthy love looks like in a very basic but foundational way, I am going to go towards what I see in God, a love that sacrifices for the other person. And so I think one of the places that you're going to look at for healthy love is, okay, you want to see that self-sacrifice in ways in your partner, but you want to lead in that way as well.
Yeah.
That's probably where I would start with it. What do you think about?
Actually, there's a scripture I came across, Romans 12:10, and it says, be devoted to one another in love, honor one another above yourselves. And I think that love is, it's basically serving and honoring the other person. It's not self-seeking. So I think if we all approach relationships, regardless if it's a romantic relationship or otherwise,
Right.
I think if we approach it in that sense to love and serve and honor the other person,
Right.
we would see better, more healthy relationships.
Overall.
Yeah.
Idea of loving the person
Yes.
above ourselves.
Above ourselves. It's ain't no easy thing,
We
I just
saying that,
say
but that I would say that's the mark you wanna
Yeah.
you wanna aim at.
Yeah. So daily work on it is not like something you will get and have forever and ever. Maybe you have to constantly check yourself and
So we had to give them the definition for love. 1 Corinthians 13,
yes.
the love chapter. These are some of the practical ways you could gauge yourself if your love is healthy,
Yes.
right? Love is patient and kind. Love doesn't envy or boast or dishonor others. Love is not proud or self-seeking. Love is not easily angered, doesn't keep a record of wrongs, and doesn't delight in evil. Rather, love rejoices in the truth. So you're talking about honesty and that part of it. Love always protects, trusts, hopes, and perseveres. Love never fails.
Yeah.
I think those are the basic attributes that we can start to intentionally build and cultivate in our relationships. And the way I say it is this way. When you start off with love is patient, you fall out with your spouse, you get in an argument, you can't gauge if you're being patient.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you can own that, and that's when we talk about look at yourself first.
yes.
Take those things and start to put them into practice. I think that's where we build healthy relationships.
Definitely. I think that's it for us, guys. Do you have any last things to say?
Man, listen, if you are having challenges with this, because I feel real passionately about this, man, reach out to us. If there's any way we can help, DM the socials. We're not just here to have the conversations, but we really want to see you guys win in your relationships.
Yes,
Yeah?
definitely. It has been such an honor and a privilege, speaking to you guys again. We hope that this session on this topic would have helped you all in some way or
Most
the other.
definitely.
Don't forget you could connect with us via TikTok and Instagram at Hope Unfiltered. This podcast is monthly, and to all our WESN viewers, we love y'all. We see you guys next time.